Today, let's do a case study from Reddit. And the case is about, simply put, wanting to have your cake and eat it too. But I think this is a particularly good case to showcase my approach to coaching, why I coach the way I do. So without further ado, the case is voila. I don't know where to go from here. So about a year ago, my mother had a hip replacement and was in a medical coma for about a week. So during that time, OP and OP's children moved into their house, which is about 700 miles away. But the spouse of OP doesn't want to be with the spouse's family, right? So the husband or the father of the children, that person is staying in their home 700 miles away. So this person, OP, is taking care of their parents and at the same time misses the husband. So they go back home. Now they feel guilty about being far away from their parents. This is a very common situation, even if it's not this exact kind of a scenario where you have to pick between two families. Like one definition of family is the family that you are born into, right? So your parents, your siblings. That's one definition of a parent. But then when you are all grown up, you become your own person and you become an adult. Ultimately, you start living in a family of your choice, which is your spouse and your children. So when you're with your family of choice, you want to be with the family that you were born with. And when you are with the family you are born with, you want to be with the family of your choice. Even if it's not this kind of a familial situation, there are lots of other times where you're at your job and you're like, oh man, I wish I could do something of my own without, working for a company and being a cog in the machine. But at the same time, when you're working on your stuff, like trying to do my stuff is so hard, and I wish somebody could just tell me what to do. And then you go to work, somebody tells you what to do. It's like, oh man, I hate listening to somebody telling me what to do, and so on and so forth, right? Okay, so in this situation, what should this person do? When you look at the advice, it's all having to do with, hey, have you talked about your, this situation with your parents? Have you talked about this with your, husband? What if you did something? What if you moved somewhere close? What if you divided your time? What if you X, Y, and Z? All of these things have to do with changing the situation, which I don't think is a completely wrong thing to do. Don't get me wrong. Communication is important. Letting your needs be expressed is important. Letting other people know what you're thinking, especially in a marriage, is, I think, a very important thing. But the problem with it is that your life, your happiness, what makes you feel good, depends on factors that you cannot control. Let's think about it this way. Suppose your happiness depends on the weather. So when it rains, you're gonna have a great time. But if it doesn't rain, you're gonna have a bad time. So in this case, your mood and the joy of your life depends on something you have no control over, right? But this sounds like a silly example. But suppose you did a job interview and then you're gonna be so happy if you get that job. But then if you don't get the job, you're gonna be so distressed and you're gonna be so stressed out. Things like this are exactly in the same realm. It's in the same category of problems. Your happiness depends on something that you don't have control over. But the thing is, sometimes it's you have absolutely no control over things. But at other times, you have an influence on the control, right? Which is what gives rising to manipulative and narcissistic behaviors. If you look at overachieving people, if you look at narcissistic people, if you look at the people who kind of like manipulate others into doing something, you will find that the common drive for those behaviors, the common motivation to kind of warrant that behavior, is this deep desire to have the outcome in the way that I want. But unfortunately, because it has to do with something like my happiness. A portion of it comes from factors that I cannot control. That's where the problem lies, right? So, could this person come up with a strategy to split time? Sure. I'm not saying that's a wrong thing to do. But the thing is, when you are depending on something outside of yourself, you always have a contingency, you always have a dependency on your happiness. This person's spouse knows what they want. They're like, I don't want to go, I don't want to travel to take care of your family. That's my choice in terms of my life. This person's parents know what they want. I'm not gonna live closer to you, fly 700 miles away with our age and our health condition. We're gonna stay home. So you have two parties who know what they want, and they can get what they want because they're in control of what they want. You have this person in the middle who wants two things that they don't control. Now, the thing is, that's one kind of look at the problem. That's one perspective of the problem of suffering. The second problem here is, in this case, we have to be learned how to be happy regardless of the situation that we find ourselves in, because my big belief is that happiness is unconditional. Even if you have sick parents, I think you deserve to be happy. Even if your dog just died, I think you deserve to be happy. Even if you are a widow, you have the right to be happy. You deserve happiness. It's an unconditional thing because we are all humans born with free will. We deserve happiness from the get-go without needing to do anything to prove my worth of happiness. It's just something that you are innately born with. That's my belief. You might disagree with it because that's my belief. I'm not saying it's the ultimate truth. So, if happiness is unconditional, that means I need to be able to find happiness in this situation where I still want both things. I want both requirements to be kind of met. I need to be able to find happiness even if my parents are ill and even if my spouse doesn't want to move closer to my parents. So, if happiness is unconditional, then I have to be able to find happiness today. I need to be able to live the happiness that's already within me. I have to realize that it is with me. Why? Because again, there is no contingency, there is no condition on happiness. So, if I am with my family, chosen family, if I am with my spouse, in a way, I am exercising my happiness. Why? Because when I was away, I really yearned to be with my chosen family, right? Okay, so finally, I'm with my chosen family. Therefore, things are good. There's nothing to like. This state is good because it is something that I have desired when I was a different state. But what happens when we go there? We start feeling guilty about the thing we just left. So when we are here, instead of focusing on the happiness that comes from here, we start looking at there. And when we go there, what do? We, instead of enjoying the happiness that stays in here, you start looking at here. Which means it's not the problem of which one to choose. It's a problem with my inability to find happiness in the condition that I am put in. And the underlying basis is happiness is unconditional. So happiness is already everywhere. And I just need to be able to find it. But how can I be happy when, when I'm feeling guilty and I'm with my family, but every time I'm feeling bad towards my parents and I could be taking more care of them? The thing is, some things in life will be incompatible with reality. Some desires in your life are going to be incompatible with reality. It's your choice on where to put your values, where to put your beliefs, where to put your, what derives your happiness. That's up to you. You can choose what will bring you happiness and what will bring you joy. That part is something that's under your control. But the thing is, you have a finite amount of time in this life. There's nothing you can do to live forever. So that part is already unnegotiable. It's not under your control. So when your desires are incompatible with reality, you are free to have such desires. But you have to understand that it is going to be incompatible with reality. Therefore, you are setting yourself up for suffering. And why do people do that? Because they have a misunderstanding of reality. Because they have they're so skewed in their perspective. They aren't in the emotional bandwidth to consider these things. So these are like common reasons as to why people cannot really find happiness with their desires, right? But if I understand all of this, if I understand the logic, if I understand the mechanism of happiness and suffering, I could very well say, you know what? I know that this is I know this is a desire that's incompatible with reality, but this is an exercise in my personal will. This is an exercise in my freedom. And you know what? Just because I can, I'm happy. That might be a way you can find happiness, even if your desire is incompatible with reality, right? So, to summarize, this kind of suffering is twofold. Number one, it's about your happiness coming from things that you cannot control. Number two, it's about the inability to find happiness that's already around you. And unfortunately, how do we realize the happiness that's around us? We realize it in hindsight when it's taken away from us. That's the tragic part of life, right? So my proposal is what if we could kind of go think through this in advance and start appreciating the life that we have today, right now. With that, let's talk about what I had offered. So, I'm very sorry you're going through this. Having an ill family member is hard, but at the core of the problem, you have two parties who are for themselves. Unfortunate thing is you can't really have both until they change their mind. Happiness is dependent on external condition, and that's where suffering starts to root itself, right? So, it's important to refocus on you. And OP says, I get what you mean, but I am an overthinker and my parents are both in their 70s, so I just worry about them a lot. I have a hard time focusing on other things and come back to that frequently. And being the overthinker that I am, I know I could lose them. I will guilt myself for the rest of my time for not being there. I'd be happier if I could just find peace of mind, but I've struggled with that, throughout my entire 36 years, unfortunately. So this already goes to show you something, right? Presence of mind is something that anyone can have access to for a few seconds. I can teach anybody how to meditate perfectly for 2 breaths. But what happens after 2 breaths? There is an inertia. There is a magnetic pull that your mind does. Why? Because your mind likes to optimize. Your mind likes to keep the wheel of going one direction continuing to go. So when you try to pull yourself from that process, for example, you have a car that's speeding, you pump the brakes, and it abruptly comes to a stop, but then what happens when you release the brake? It starts to go again, right? Putting a complete stop to the car requires you to apply the force until the car comes to a complete stop. So, meditation for 2 breaths is like pumping the brakes for 2 breaths. It's not going to stop the pull, right? So, this dialogue goes to show you how difficult it is when you're trying to do something that your mind is pulling you in the opposite direction of. But what do we do about that? What can we do about that? We have to understand that there is no deeper meaning behind that pull outside of its a habitual karmic force. But we'll follow up with that in a different video because that's another big topic by itself. So I reply, thanks for your reply. And suppose I'm eating a hamburger or a pizza for lunch. And when I make a decision, I just need to eat the decided food. But if I'm thinking about pizza the entire time I'm eating the hamburger, I'm not only having not having the food I'm thinking about, and I'm not enjoying the food that's currently on my table, right? So you have to hold on to the happiness. You have to find the happiness that's available to you right now. But the comment that I got is, I've made steps to try to make myself happier. I got a puppy, which I wanted forever. I meet up with my nephew as much as possible as he's my only friend, and we hike, which is my favorite activity. And I take kids to as many. So what's the common thread here? You have to keep doing something for happiness, right? But why can't we find happiness that we don't have to do anything for because it's already available to us, right? But you know what? Reality is hard, right? I also work pretty much full-time to try to give myself less time to think in my downtime. I bought a Switch 2 and Pocopia, but my mind just wanders while I play when I'm doing nothing. So I'm not sure if at this point if I was happier here or there, either places a layer of depression for me. This is excellent self-awareness. In here, there's not a lot of executive power moving. In here, there's something that's always being pulled somewhere and pushed somewhere. So ultimately, until we can find the ownership of the thing that we call us and start exercising the ownership of the self, it will kind of always be this pattern of being pushed and pulled around. But I think even if you are in that state, I think you deserve to be happy. And that is why, even if no one is willing to listen, I spread my message of happiness, unconditional happiness that you can find in your everyday life without needing to do anything extra. That's why I say this word. Spread this word of happiness. And if you want to explore life coaching with me, please check out my website at julylifecoach.com or give me an email at billy@julylifecoach.com.